Hello and welcome to the Realizing Resilience podcast. I am your host, Nate Fournier, and today we are sponsored by Reimagined Roots, ecological and edible landscaping company transforming backyards into beautiful, abundant, sensational ecosystems packed with food, medicine, and native plants. Today we're talking about psychological resilience. This can come in the form of emotional resilience, and there's depth here. There is depth here. And I want to talk, I'll lean in on the emotional resilience side of things. We know that feeling when you lose your temper. It happens to all of us. And ideally, as we grow and we mature, we create more resilience around our stress tolerance and our anger threshold to the point where we don't properly lose our temper and throw a temper tantrum. I like to think it's a maturity thing. There are plenty of adults and people who just can't do it. They can't hold their temper and they lose it. And it's embarrassing. It's like one of those things. And I heard an analogy recently where it was actually Tony Robbins, and he was talking about how three people can react to the same situation dramatically differently, and how one person can get pissed off, really upset, and get mad and swear and just vehemently, just steaming out the ears, really, really, really mad. Other people, get annoyed, just like, damn, that's annoying, but they're not violently mad, and they want to fight about it. And then other people are totally cool and are like, damn, okay, so what are we going to do now? And are cool, calm, and collected, and each have their pros and cons. The person who really flips their lid and loses their cool might think that people don't take them seriously until they yell. And then they demand attention and they command power when they're the loudest voice in the room. The person who gets annoyed maybe has a little bit more self-consciousness, like they're annoyed, but they're not mad at a person. They're annoyed about a situation, maybe. And the person that's cool, calm, and collected, maybe people don't take them seriously. I mean, they might feel like when I'm mad or annoyed and I have that sense, I'm like, okay, something has to change. And I'm going to take decisive action to make a change, to resolve the situation. And we all land somewhere on that threshold. And of course, the situation, it depends. People who totally freak out and lose their cool over really silly stuff. I think that is what I want to focus on today. Think about the last time you lost it. You got wicked mad. And why did you get mad? And were you proud of it afterwards? I feel like that's rarely the case. More often than not, when we lose our cool, we feel a little embarrassed. Not always, not all people. I personally have a very high tolerance to anger. I think I attribute a lot of that to just positive psychology, positive thinking, and stoicism, and martial arts. I think anybody who trains martial arts really increases their ability to literally get punched in the face and keep their cool. And I think everybody needs to learn from that. I think that there's so much power in being able to be faced with a really difficult situation, to get really mad, to feel that feeling in your stomach, when your blood starts to boil a little bit and you're mad, but to remain cool, calm, and collected, and then strategically deploy anger or your outward expression of annoyance in an effective way. And so knowing that balance of when it's effective to express your anger or not. If you have to get a point across and somebody else isn't hearing you, and there's, God, it's so hard to justify even still, no matter the situation, but, to be stern and look somebody directly in the eye and say, stop it, or something. I mean, to the point, I don't know. It's so hard to say. I grew up fighting. My older brother picked on me quite a lot, and he toughened me up and created some resilience there. But when I was young, I would throw fits. I would go crazy, and I wasn't good at quick-wittedness. Like, I wasn't sharp with my tongue and able to come up with comebacks. And so when somebody made fun of me, I just resorted to violence. Just straight, I would attack. And maybe not like, I was pretty young, but I would fight. I didn't know how else to protect myself, how else to stand up for myself. And yeah, looking back, right, totally a toddler and immature. And now as an adult, when I see other adults lose their cool, like completely lose their temper, I'm so embarrassed for them. And I don't want to, it's tough because I've found it to be the case even in a professional setting. If I had a boss and he flipped his lid and got all pissed off, I lose all respect. I'm like, you fucking child, come on. Grow up, man. You can't be throwing a temper tantrum like you're a child. Be an adult. Let's talk about it. What's a reasonable solution? Like, why are you so mad? Let's dig into it. Like, go to therapy, which usually escalates things and makes it all way worse. And so I try not to actually say those things, but think about it. The power of psychological and emotional resilience. Like, to be conscious of that is a superpower, because the person who maintains their cool, and I think it's important to maybe use an example of an extreme. Like, if you're in a live or die scenario, like if you're in a catastrophic event, if something's happening like that's outside of your control, and you lose it, and you just curl up in a ball in either, right, and that's that fight or flight or fawn response. There's an important lesson to learn, and I think that there's a mental exercise that's worthwhile to really think about, to visualize being in a survival situation. As one extreme example, where, say, there's like a shooter and there are bullets flying and everybody's panicking and freaking out and screaming and running, and it's chaos. Like, how do you handle yourself in that situation? What emotional and psychological strengths would benefit you in a situation like that? And play it through in your mind, and like, just face that fear. I think preemptively will benefit us all significantly if that time were to ever come. God forbid it does. Or in a car accident, a medical situation, if you find somebody who experienced a significant injury and there's blood, and like, maybe the knowledge, like you have the knowledge of how to help, but when your heart's racing and your adrenaline is through the roof, being able to assess a situation, make a decisive action, make the correct decision, and act. Really important to be able to do that. And it doesn't have to be so extreme either. It could be if your kids are talking back to you and you had a long day at work and you're stressed, and maybe you and your partner are fighting and the kids are screaming and nobody's listening, and you explode and you scream and you yell and everybody goes silent, and everybody has that sense, that anxiousness, that feeling in your stomach when it's like an awkward situation when somebody loses their cool. And to play that through your mind and think about it again preemptively, of like, how, like, is that the most effective solution? Does that get the result that you want? What are the repercussions? Short term, long term? Do you want to lead with fear or with respect? Applies to so many different aspects of life. And it can be taken too far, like if you're too passive and you're soft and you say, oh, that's okay, don't worry about it, or your kids are yelling and screaming and you don't do anything about it. And it's almost just as bad. And so finding within yourself and creating a bit of an identity around yourself, like identifying what your current identity might be in these situations and what your ideal would be. How do you want to be? How do you want to present yourself? And what feeling, what outcome do you want the others around you to feel as a result of your expression? Clear, direct, stern, but with some grace, I think, is the goal. And that's just when somebody, we may have had a boss or somebody that you've respected give you feedback very directly, very sternly, but in a respectable way, where you walk away from the situation and you heard something that maybe, they told you something that maybe hurt your feelings. But instead of walking away like, screw that guy, and you all pissed off, to walk away and say, wow, he's right. I respected the way that he presented that to me. It's not easy. Something I strive for every day, and it's a skill I need to develop as well. But I think it's a worthwhile point to make and something to think about in this holistic view of what it means to be a resilient person. Stoicism, like so much of this, comes back to Stoicism in the sense of, what's within your control and what isn't, and taking full ownership and responsibility for what is in your control, and to recognize the power of presence and your ability to maintain that identity that you've chosen for yourself through difficult times. So, what can you do today to exercise and practice more psychological and emotional resilience? What exercises can you do, as difficult as they may be, to practice so that you're not learning on the fly when a difficult situation arises? And how will that change your life? How will that change your identity? And how do you want to show up in this world? Do you want to lose your temper and throw fits, or lead by fear and create anger and resentment from others? Or do you want to lead with respect, stay cool, calm, and collected, present your case directly, sternly, and respectably? And what could that do for you? So, in the essence of resilience, keep that in mind, make it a practice, daily habit, do what you need to do to grow in that area and all others. And as always, keep growing.